guys, it's Reagan, and today I'm going to be filming my February wrap-up, and I read a lot more books than I intended, and I definitely did not really follow my TBR that well, but oh well, when have I ever? But anyway, yeah, this is going to be a long video, so let's get started, shall we? This month I read a total of 8 books, I want to say, but 2 of them I'm not going to show because I read them for school and they're really not that interesting. If you're curious, one of them, both of them for Chinese history, so they're like Chinese philosophy books and stuff. The very first book I read this month was a fantasy book, and that was Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta. This book follows a character named Finnegan, or Finnegan of the Rock, and 10 years ago his kingdom was destroyed, and basically all the people, including himself, became refugees. And the book follows Finnegan 10 years after that happened, after his kingdom got destroyed and nobody could return and everything's just horrible, and it follows him on a quest to bring his people home and find the lost prince. And what spurs all this is when Finnegan meets a character named Evangeline, I don't know how to say her name. But this girl does not speak, but she is awesome and super cool, and their lives become intertwined and their quest becomes all the greater. I really enjoyed this book. This is a fantasy trilogy, but the cool thing about this series is that each book is a standalone and the next book follows another character in the world. So if you're interested in reading this series, there is resolution at the end, but at the same time there's this sense of, oh, there's gonna be more because I know there's another book, but it's set in the future, so you don't have, there's no cliffhanger. This book overall I really enjoyed. It read really nicely, and it read to me, this is gonna sound strange, it didn't read very young adult-ish, but yet it was very young adult-ish. I know that's a very strange way to describe a book, but the writing was very unique and I liked it a lot. The characters, Finnegan and Evangeline, I will focus on because those are the 2 main characters. Finnegan I thought was hilarious, and just a lot of the characters were really funny, and I just liked him a lot. He was very likable, very smart. He was very intelligent, and that was an important attribute that he wanted to cultivate and continue on. Like, he wasn't embarrassed of his intelligence. In fact, he knew he was intelligent. And there was also Evangeline, I don't know how to say her name, and I loved her. She is such a bamf. She, in the first part of the book, she doesn't speak at all, but yet you can really get a sense of her character just through her expressions and how she's written, which I think is really interesting. And I just really liked her, and you find out a lot more about her past throughout the novel, and it was very cool, and I really liked this book, and I'm very excited to continue on with the series, and I gave this guy a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. The next book I read should be no surprise at all, and that is Ignite Me by Hedda Muffy. This is the 3rd and final book in the Shatter Me series. I loved it. Yes, I'll give a brief synopsis. The Shatter Me series follows a girl, Juliet, and her touch is lethal, and in the first book she's in prison because her touch is lethal, so she got thrown in there when she was a young child, and all of a sudden she finds herself being summoned by the reestablishment for her ability, and she's like, what's going on? So then you find out what's going on. This book was amazing. It was the 3rd book. Again, I'm not going to go too much into it because spoilers, but I'll just say I really enjoyed it. Though I did get a lot of questions in my last video when I hauled this about these post-it notes. I tried a thing where I would post-it things I really enjoyed. Yeah, it was fun. There's a lot of things in this book I really enjoyed, obviously. So yeah, I don't know if I'll do that for every book, because it's kind of troublesome, but this book has a lot of quotable moments. Shatter Me series is probably one of my biggest fangirl series, like a series that I acknowledge is probably not the best. I mean, the world building is lacking, and a lot of other things are perhaps lacking, but it doesn't bother me because I just really enjoy the characters in the world so much, so yes. The next book I read is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. Steelheart follows a boy named David, and he lives in a world where all of a sudden people started getting extraordinary abilities, but these people who got extraordinary abilities became, I guess, superhero-like, but they became evil. They're not good people. And he lived in Chicago. He still lives in Chicago, but it's been taken over by a bad epic named Steelheart, and Steelheart is essentially, everyone thinks he's unbeatable, literally he cannot be killed, but David has seen something no one else has seen. He's seen Steelheart bleed. So now he is on a quest for revenge because Steelheart killed his father, so he wants to defeat Steelheart. This book, let me just tell you, is action-packed from page 1. I love superhero stories, especially anti-hero stories, and this delivered for me. I love Brandon Sanderson's writing, everyone knows this. So I really, really enjoyed this book. It read to me very comic booky. I didn't necessarily care so much about the characters, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I was much more focused and entranced on the story and the plot and where it was going than, say, the characters, but I still liked them a lot. I just didn't pay attention to them as much. Like, here's my example, where Ignite Me to me is a character-heavy book where you love the characters and the world is less important. This book, characters are important, you get their perspectives, but for me personally, the world and the story is more important. Get what I'm saying? Get what I'm saying? Anyway, this book was awesome. The plot was entrancing. I can't wait for the sequel. It was such a fast read, and it was amazing. Everyone read it. 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. The next book I read was Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. This is book 2 in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. I don't know what the series name is, and I have to say, I was so impressed by this book. So impressed by this book. I read the first one, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, over the summer, and I liked it. I gave it like 4 stars, but I wasn't by any means blown away by it. I was like, okay, this is pretty good, this is pretty good. But this one took the whole story to a whole new level. Again, because this is a sequel, I'm not going to go into the plot of this one specifically, but there is something I do want to talk about. But I'll give you kind of a brief synopsis of the first one, though it's going to be pretty vague because the story... It's best to go into the story with a vague synopsis. So the first one, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, follows a character named Karu, and she is an art student in Prague, but she also has a side job where she collects teeth for a character named Brimstone. And then one day she notices a strange figure burning a handprint on Brimstone's door, and her life is suddenly changed forever. And Karu finds out lots of stuff and her life is changed. The second book follows Karu after the end of the first book, obviously, and the thing I really want to talk about this, besides the beauty and the magnificence of Laini Taylor's writing, but just how Laini Taylor captures war in this novel. Laini Taylor's ability to capture the overall tone of war I thought was magnificent. You really got the sense while reading this that everyone on both sides of this long war are exhausted. The tone was exhausted. Everyone was exhausted. You felt exhausted. Our main character was completely just depleted of life. All the characters around her were essentially depleted of life. I felt the hopelessness while reading it. I had no idea how this was gonna be solved, how anyone was able to carry on. And I felt the characters felt the same way, but yet they did carry on, which is important in itself. So yes, Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor was a wonderful sequel, yards ahead of the first book from Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and I gave it 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, and I cannot wait for the third book coming out in April, which is next month, to finish up the series. It was amazing. The next book I read was Burn for Burn by Jenny Han and Savone Vivian. I was not intending on reading this pretty much anytime soon, but I just felt like reading a contemporary book, so then I did. This follows 3 girls in high school, and they have been wronged by people, and they want to take revenge on these people. Yeah, that's essentially all you really need to know. This book was filled with every stereotypical high school cliche, and it was pretty predictable, but I still really enjoyed it. It was fun, it was fast-paced, it hooked me, and I'm really intrigued for the second one because I hear the second one is even better than this one, so looking forward to it. And I gave Burn for Burn a 3.5 out of 5 on Goodreads. The next book I read is Cruel Beauty by Rosamond Hodge. Yes, and this is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. However, like I mentioned in my book haul, it's more than just a retelling. It integrates a lot of fantasy elements as well as a lot of Greek mythology elements, and it follows a main character named Nyx, I want to say, yeah, Nyx, and her father at her birth made a bargain with the Dark Lord in the castle that when she turned 16, he had to choose one of his daughters, she has a twin, to go and marry him. And so Nyx was chosen at birth to be this daughter. So she's immediately sent away and she's not happy about it, but she has plans to kill him and stop his evil reign. So there's that. This book surprised me because I really went in thinking it was going to be kind of a stereotypical retelling of a story that is very well known, but it added a lot of unique elements to it and I really enjoyed it. I felt the world was whimsical and creative and dark, and I just really liked that. The other thing I will say is about 100 pages in, I was over this story. I was like, I know exactly where this is going, I'm bored, but I was wrong. I was wrong about where it was going. It took a twist and I was like, I like where this is going. I was wrong. I was wrong. I will admit it. I was wrong. That being said, if you pick this book up thinking it's a stereotypical YA, it does deliver a little more of a unique story than that. I quite enjoyed it. So yes, I ended up giving a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. The last book I finished this month is a proud moment of mine, and that is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Yes, I read this month along with all those other books. How? I have absolutely no idea. I read this with other booktubers. In the booktube we read it together and we talked about it. It was super fun. I will say, to explain a synopsis for this book, I have no idea where to begin. Game of Thrones follows a lot of characters in a fantasy world where everyone is vying for power, essentially. Everyone is maneuvering, everyone is scheming, and a lot of things are happening, and you're reading from a lot of different perspectives. And that's all I can really say, because if I went into any further detail, it would just be spoilers personally, but I will say there's a lot of people out there scared to read this book, thinking it's too dense, thinking it's too difficult to read. I didn't think that at all. In fact, I found it very fast-paced, not dense at all, easy to follow, and I wasn't confused by all of the characters. So I will say, if you're scared or hesitant to pick up this book, don't be. It was really, really good, and just read it because it was amazing, okay? And I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. So there you go, guys. Those are all of the freaking books I read in February. It was a lot. Good job sticking to the end of this video because I know this one's a doozy, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!